Hi guys, it's Steph from IDRIVEACLASSIC, and today I'm back in the oldest car that I've ever test driven for you guys. It's a 1953 Ford Zephyr, and I am so excited to get the keys to this and take you out. We've been out for a little run this morning in the English countryside, and it is beautiful here, and it feels like the perfect car for the perfect setting. So in this video today, I'm going to show you around the outside, show the inside, and there's some really exciting bits going on. Not your normal gear stick, so you know what's coming. It's column change. And then we're going to have a look under the bonnet. I'm going to show you what's under there, including the amazing twin horn that sounds incredible. And then we're going to go out for a drive together, and I'm going to show you what it's like to drive such an amazingly beautiful car. I mean, honestly, I'm overwhelmed already, so I can't wait to share the experience with you guys. So I would usually say let's belt up and head off, but with the age of the car, we don't have seat belts, so leaves me just to say, let's go.
Now, since testing the Anglia and the Corsair, I've had a real thing for older Fords, so when I got offered this Zephyr, I couldn't say no. It looked like an absolute dream, and spoiler, it drove just as well too. So as we look around the Zephyr, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the car, tell you a little bit about the Zephyr itself. So this example was found in a barn in Scarborough, and Joe's dad bought it, and it's pretty much a rolling restoration that he kind of drives, and he's doing a little bit too, but he's a very talented man, so I'm sure give it a couple of years and this is going to look amazing. But as is always the case with a lot of these sorts of cars, parts availability isn't amazing. So as you look round, just keep that in mind, and keep in mind as well that this car is a rolling restoration, and to me it's probably one of my favourite cars that I've driven. It's incredible. Anyway, back to the Ford Zephyr. So the Ford Zephyr was manufactured by British Ford from 1950 to 1972, with which this big 53 model makes it pretty early in the lifespan of the Zephyr. Initially, the 4-cylinder version was called the Ford Console, but from 1962 even, both the 4 and 6 litre models were called the Zephyr, and the Console name was discontinued. And fun fact, the Zephyr, along with the Zodiac and the Executive, were the biggest passenger cars in the British Ford range until the early 70s. But if I park this next to an SUV at Tesco's, the car that you see hogging the roads every single day, these cars look positively petite, which has proved to me that bigger doesn't always mean better. Now, the car we're testing today is known as the Ford Zephyr Six. It was the first of the Zephyr range and was a lengthened version of the Console, but sported a 6-cylinder engine, and it had a 3-speed gearbox and column change, which I'm going to demo later in the video for you. So it's quite exciting if you're used to a normal gear change. It's quite an easy one too. Now, a little bit of tech for you. The front suspension uses McPherson struts, which you'll have heard me talk about in the Austin Maestro video last week, and the back suspension used a live axle. Now, although it's not the most economical car, giving just over 20 mpg, it can reach a fantastic 80 miles per hour, which for me puts it firmly in the usable classics box. Now, if like me you like a bit of variety, you're in luck, because you could have got a Zephyr 6 as a 4-door saloon, an estate, or a 2-door convertible. Now, the convertible version was made by Car Bodies and even sported a snazzy power operated hood, which is a massive step up from some of the competitors where you were folding it back, plugging it in, all the rest of it and all that faff. Much easier to just get a bit of power in there. Now, if you're a Ford fan, you'll know all about Dagenham, and these cars were not only made at Dagenham, they were also assembled at Ford's New Zealand factory. And over in New Zealand, these beautiful cars had a different competitor: the British market, the Australian Holden. And for my Kiwi viewers, I read that our lovely Queen visited in New Zealand in her Commonwealth tour of the early 50s, and she went to watch the Zephyrs being built, which sadly they didn't show on the Crown, but they definitely should have. And my final fun fact for you is that a Zephyr 6 won the Monte Carlo Rally in 1953, and in 55 won the East African Safari Rally. So now that I've given you a bit of a tour around the car, I think it's high time that we jump behind the steering wheel and show you what she's like, because honestly there is a lot to show you today and I cannot wait. And for those of you that have spotted the jam donuts, it's been a very busy day today and I forgot to take them out of the car when we were filming, so sorry about that. Now I'm just going to pan around to the back, show you what the back looks like before we jump behind the wheel. But as you can see, this is a car that's been built with quality in mind, and it's firmly shaping up to be one of my favourite test drives yet. So let's get behind the wheel.
Now, I wanted to I wanted to shoot from the back seat because I thought we would get a much better perspective of what I'm looking at on the dash. As you can probably tell, I'm really excited to drive this car today. And in fact, a little bit of trivia, it's the oldest car I've driven on review. The oldest car I've ever driven is actually a very early Morris Minor, surprise, surprise. Now, let's go back to this amazing Zephyr that we're in today. Now, for me, the dash looks really different to what I'm used to, but also a little bit familiar. So I thought I would talk you through what's in front of me so that you guys get a perspective for what I'm looking at and what I'm feeling as I drive this car today. So across here, you've got your miles per hour. So it's that central speedo that I like to have. And as you can see here, you've got 5 stars. And this was part of Ford's campaign that said, Ford is 5-star motoring. And again, you've got your miles per hour, as you'll have seen under there. You've got an amp meter here, which just tells you if the battery's charging or not, which for me is quite advanced for the era of the car. And over here, you've got empty to full, self-explanatory. Now here, you might be saying, well, isn't that bizarre that they've screwed this absolutely beautiful dash in with those 2 unsightly screws? But the thing is they're not screws. So under here are little lights, and they are warning lights. And I'm going to see if I can get them to come on for you now. So can you see there? It might be a little bit difficult for you to see, so I'm going to try and get those going again there. Give it a little bit of a twist. And while we're here, I'm going to talk to you about the horn. So look at this horn, it's incredible. And you press down this bit to get the horn going. And these are your indicators, so they're just... feels so bizarre. It's one of those cars that is so different from what I'm used to. It feels an exciting adventure. So let's press the horn and then I'll talk to you about the rest of the car because I just need to knock it off so I don't burn the coil out. So let's go. Very succinct. I'm just going to turn that key off. Now I'm going to talk to you about some of the other dials on the car as well. So one of the materials I absolutely love from the kind of the 40s and the 50s is Bakelite. It's what a lot of steering wheels were made out of, and there's a gratuitous use of Bakelite in this car which I entirely appreciate. So we've got a light, we've got your lights over here, which is a Bakelite knob there, and you've got one for your choke here. And on your older cars, as I talked about when we took I think it was when we took the Simca out, we talked about push start cars. So you've got your push start over here. This is an aftermarket edition, and this is just windscreen washer fluid. And then over here, so if you can see this, those are your windscreen wipers. So you just turn them on and they come on, and then you've got your ashtray just there. And for me, it feels like there's everything here that you need, and it feels quite advanced. Now, the one thing that we haven't talked about is where's the gear stick? So you've probably noticed that I'm sat on a bench seat, and I think it's high time, if you've never seen it before, for me to show you what column change looks like. Now, one of the interesting things that I love about taking old cars out is that you get to experience so many different varieties and environments of the motoring age. And one of the things that I have experienced this summer for the first time, so when I took the Simca Around out, you will have seen me use column change, but in case you haven't seen that video, I thought I would talk you through column change today. So usually you would have your gear stick down here, you'd have your handbrake here, but on this it's completely different. So it's up here, hence the reason why it's called column change, because it's on the steering column. So I've had a very small practice of this, so I apologise if I'm a little bit rusty, and we've got 3 gears on this, so I'm going to show you. So it's here and down, that's your first. You go up and you come, let's go, there you go, and you're into your third. So those are your gears that you've got. Just need to make sure that you're going into neutral between each one, foot fully down on the clutch, and then just down here, this thing here that looks like an umbrella sticking out, that's your handbrake. So I think it's going to be a very different driving experience today, but I am so excited to show you guys. Now it's time to start the car. I'm really excited to hear this engine because it looks beautiful under the bonnet. It sounded beautiful earlier when we were taking a drive out, and I think you're going to be surprised as we drive out today. It's a very luxury car of its era. It's a beautiful, beautiful car. It would have been around at about £45,000 in today's money, so it wasn't a cheap car, and especially at a time when cars were a luxury for people. So I'm whittling on, let's get the car started and you can hear how she sounds. So we're going to press the push start button and hear what she's like. Now I'm being very delicate with this engine because this to me is a car that is, although it's very sturdy and it's very beautifully put together, it is a car that's going to need driving with quite a bit of TLC because she's an older lady. So we're going to take her out for a little poodle round and I'm going to tell you what it's like driving this amazing Ford Zephyr. Now, the first thing that strikes me about this is my seating position feels very bolt upright. I feel like I'm sat very present and correct, which is actually how I prefer to drive. I hate this slouchy nonsense that people do, and it's very, oh goodness, honestly, it feels, when I was a passenger earlier, I expressed that I felt like it was a very luxury car, and as I drive it now, it still feels exactly the same. My only complaint so far is that the turning circle is massive. It's like trying to navigate a boat. Where every time we pull out, even if you prep, you're still coming onto the other side of the road. And with drivers of today, you know what people are like, they're not the most considerate. So I mean, that's been a bit hair-raising coming out of some of these country roads. But honestly, this car is astonishing. It's so quiet and it's so smooth. The way that it's gripping the roads, the way that it handles, apart from that turning circle, I'm just absolutely overwhelmed. I didn't expect a car this old to feel so luxurious, and I don't know what I was expecting when I got in. I guess I was expecting a larger family car, something a bit like the Morris Oxford per se, something a little bit like that, I guess is what I was expecting. But this, honestly, it's really knocked my socks off. It's so nice to drive. It's, for the age of the car, it's relatively responsive. I'm not having to move the steering wheel too much to get too much out of it, and for me this is something that I feel quite comfortable reviewing because I'm somebody who tends to drive older cars on a day-to-day basis. You know, I've got my Morris Minor, and when I take cars out, I prefer to take out your 60s cars, and so for me today, taking out this amazing Ford Zephyr from 1953, it just, honestly, I feel like I was born at the wrong time. And really, if I'd been in the 60s as somebody who was driving, I think I would have really tried my hardest to get something like this, because even though, honestly, as you looked round, it looks like an absolute tank of a car, and it really is. The doors are so heavy, everything in it, and all the components are so heavy and well put together. It's relatively easy to drive. I can see straight over the bonnet. I feel like I've got really good awareness of how big the car is. I feel like I could probably park it with some confidence as well. And due to the fact that we're not bogged down with all sorts of boring modern safety features that you might get in a car in 2019, my visibility in this car is as close to 100% as I could possibly get. So it fills me with great trepidation to tell you all that as I take out more Fords, I do question just how British Leyland I really am. Now, when I took the Simca out, I found the column change quite laborious. I found it quite tough to get my head around, but this has been totally different. I feel like the column change is quite defined. I mean, we have got the absolute luxury that there are only 3 gears even, 4th if you include reverse, and it's just been a lot easier to get my head around, a lot easier to, I feel like the gears are a lot more defined on this, and it flies along as well, and again, that's something that I didn't expect. So I guess I thought it was going to be quite slow, I thought it was going to be a Sunday driver, but I mean, Joe's dad has taken this from Lincolnshire all the way down to London, and you know, it's done great, it's doing really well, and I can see why he's fallen in love with it, because this car is just quality on 4 wheels. It is everything you would want, I think, in a classic car, but there's a sticking point, as there often is with these things, in that the parts availability for these cars is pretty much non-existent on quite a few bits, and the bits that are available are either second-hand reconditioned or astronomically expensive. So it's not a car, although I absolutely love it with my whole heart, I think it's beautiful, and I can't fault, apart from the turning circle, I can't fault anything about it. From the seating position through to the interior, through to how it's styled, everything is perfect. This fly in the ointment is this part situation, because they just aren't available, which is a bit of a nightmare, and also means that you couldn't drive this, just getting my camera back around, you couldn't drive this on a regular basis. This would have to be a Sunday car, and it's such a shame, because honestly this is one of the most beautiful cars I've ever driven. And I do tend to find actually that the older you go with cars, I feel like that quality, because cars were sometimes I mean, at this point in history, and I should probably mention this, at this point in history, there were waiting lists for cars. People waited years and years and years to get a car. It's not like today where you can go down the forecourt and you can say, right, I want a Kia and I want it now and I want it in this colour, and they'll say, right, it'll be a couple of weeks wait, or we've got one on the forecourt. You know, it wasn't like that. People had to wait years for cars at this sort of era, which meant that when people made a car decision, it was such a big emotional investment, because people had to think, is that the car for us? Cars weren't changed every 3 years like they are now. Some people, I mean, the owner of my Morris Minor, for example, kept these cars until they died, or for many decades. And so it wasn't the same situation that we're seeing now, where it's such a throwaway commodity and it's, something you buy on finance or whatever. These were such important purchases and such a big investment that I feel like the quality really matched it. And I feel like as I drive this along now, I just think there is so much care and workmanship and effort that's gone into this car, and you can really, really feel it. And although as we've had a look round, you'll probably have noticed it's not a concourse example, and in fact it is, to bring my camera back round, it is a rolling restoration. I don't think there's anything bad about that at all, by the way. I love driving things like rolling restorations, because I think they're a lot more honest and you get to see the car how it is. And so even despite the fact it's not a concourse example and it's what I like to call a real working example, I think it's just exceptional, and I just love it. And I have really, really fallen in love with this beautiful Ford Zephyr. So I feel like I don't want to give the keys back to this car, because honestly it's just incredible. And I know I keep talking about how incredible it is, but it really, really is. And we're going over some bumpy country lanes and we're all over the place, and this car is sticking to the road. It's everything about it. It's just from the steering wheel, and I love a big steering wheel, because that's what I've been bred on. I've had my Morris Minor with its big steering wheel, so the steering position's very comfortable, the seating position's very comfortable. It feels almost like a very posh lottery winner upgrade on my daily driver. I just love it. I think it's brilliant. Guys, it's time for me to say goodbye to you now. I'm driving this amazing Ford Zephyr back, and what an absolute pleasure of an afternoon it has been. I mean, if I owned this car, honestly, I think I would just be going out driving for the sake of it. It's been amazing, from the handling through to everything, just everything about it. There's not really anything that I can fault on this exceptional looking car. It looks attractive, it drives really well. The only problem is the parts availability, but you know what, you can't have it all. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. So if you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed making it and driving this car around and having a wonderful afternoon out in the English country